It was late in the evening when the storm clouds gathered above our village, casting long shadows that stretched like dark fingers across the narrow street. I had just finished my routine patrol when a frantic knock echoed on my office door. A woman, her clothes drenched from the rain, her face pale and eyes wild with fear, collapsed into the chair before me. She clutched her chest as though her very breath was running out. "Malik Sahib," her voice cracked, "you must help us." The voice, it's gone. My daughter's voice, vanished into thin air. I stared at her puzzled. "What do you mean, vanished?" She looked at me with trembling lips, tears mixing with raindrops. "My daughter was singing in the courtyard just last night. A soft song, one she learned from her grandmother. But suddenly, in the middle of her song, she screamed. And then silence. Since then, she cannot speak a word. She tries, but no sound leaves her lips. It is as if someone stole her voice. The words killed me. A missing person I understood. A theft I understood, but a stolen voice, that was a riddle unlike any I had faced. I leaned forward. Did anyone see anything? Hear anything? The woman nodded quickly. Yes. Neighbors said they heard footsteps in the alley that night. But no one dares to follow. Everyone whispers it is the work of a wandering spirit, the Gumshuda Awaz that haunts this village. But Malik Sahib, you are a man of law. You must uncover the truth. Please, before it takes another voice. Her plea was desperate. Her eyes locked with mine, searching for hope. I knew then this was not merely a matter of superstition. Somewhere behind this mystery lay a human hand, a hidden crime, cloaked in darkness. And I, Malik Safdar Hayat, would peel back every layer until the missing voice spoke again. The next morning, I set out for the woman's house. The rain had left the streets muddy, and the air carried the damp smell of wet earth. Villagers watched me as I passed, some with curiosity, others with fear. The whispers had already spread. Malik Safdar has taken the case of the missing voice. When I reached the courtyard, the scene was haunting. The girl, barely 16, sat wrapped in a shawl, staring blankly at the ground. Her lips trembled as though she wanted to speak, but no sound came. Her mother knelt beside her, stroking her hair helplessly. "Safdar Sahib," the mother said softly, "please see her for yourself." I crouched down in front of the girl. Beta, try to speak, even a whisper. Her eyes met mine, large, terrified, and pleading. She opened her mouth, her throat strained, but nothing, not even a breath of a voice escaped. Only silence. My heart tightened. This was no ordinary illness. It was as if someone had stolen the very essence of her speech. I noticed something unusual. Around her neck was a faint red mark, a bruise, circular, almost like a grip had been placed there. I touched it gently. She flinched. "Did anyone touch her neck? Did anyone grab her?" I asked. The mother shook her head. "No one. She was in the courtyard, singing. Then the scream. Then silence." I stood and walked slowly around the house. The walls of the courtyard were high, yet the mud along the back wall was disturbed, as if someone had climbed over during the rain. I bent down. Footprints. Large, heavy, unmistakably belonging to a man. So this was no spirit. No wandering curse. This was intrusion, and this was crime. When I returned inside, the girl's grandmother tugged at my sleeve. Her wrinkled face leaned close, and she whispered, trembling, "Malik Sahib, we warned them. The spirit of the graveyard. It comes for the young ones. First it steals their voice, then their life. You should not stay here after sunset." Her words sent a ripple of unease through the family, but I had learned long ago, where there is talk of spirits, there is usually a man hiding behind the mask. That night, I decided to keep watch. Because somewhere in the darkness, someone or something was still moving. That night, the village lay under a suffocating silence. The rain had stopped, but the clouds still hung low, hiding the moon. Darkness pressed against every wall, every tree, every grave. I sat in the courtyard of the girl's house, my revolver resting on my lap, my eyes fixed on the shadows. The girl lay inside, guarded by her mother, while the rest of the family huddled in fear. Not a single lamp burned outside. They believed light invited spirits. But I knew fear feeds only the guilty. Hours crawled by. The crickets stopped chirping. The dogs, which had barked earlier, grew eerily quiet. It was then I heard it. A faint whistle, low, drawn out, almost like someone calling. I rose slowly, following the sound toward the back wall where I had seen footprints earlier. My boots sank into the damp earth as I pressed against the shadows. And then I saw it. A figure, tall, draped in a long shawl, moving slowly toward the house. The gait was strange yet heavy, deliberate. At first glance, it could almost pass as a woman, but I had learned to watch more carefully. The shoulders were broad, the arms too strong. This was no woman. I gripped my revolver tighter. The figure crouched at the wall, pressing its ear toward the courtyard. Then, in a chilling voice, low, guttural, unnatural, as it hissed, "Speak, speak for me." The hairs on my neck stood on end. Whoever this was, he was deliberately imitating a ghostly presence. He wanted the girl, or perhaps the family, to believe a spirit was haunting them. I stepped forward. "Stop right there." The figure froze, then bolted, leaping over the wall with an agility that surprised me. I fired a warning shot into the air, the crack echoing through the village. Dogs began barking furiously. Lights flickered on in a few huts. "Catch him," I shouted as I scaled the wall and landed in the wet fields beyond. The chase began. The figure ran with desperate speed, weaving between the trees, his shawl flapping like wings in the wind. I kept close, my eyes never losing him. He stumbled once in the mud, giving me a glimpse of his face beneath the shawl, pale, sharp, and filled with something more dangerous than fear. Obsession. But before I could close the distance, he vanished into the graveyard. I slowed, stepping cautiously between the crooked tombstones. The air was colder here. The silence, heavier, the scent of damp earth and wild grass filled my lungs. Somewhere in the distance, I heard it again. That same low whistle, taunting, calling. The intruder was hiding here, among the dead, but the question clawed at my mind. Who was he? And what did he want with the girl's voice? I knew then. The answers lay buried within this graveyard, and before the night was over, something far darker than superstition would be unearthed. The air in the graveyard was thick with fog, curling around the tombstones like silent fingers. Every step I took felt heavier than the last, as if the earth itself tried to hold me back, from discovering the truth. The whistle had stopped, but the sense of being watched had grown stronger, almost as if the shadows themselves were alive. I reached the old section of the graveyard where the stones leaned at odd angles, names barely legible. My instincts told me this was where the intruder had been hiding. I crouched behind a crumbling tomb, listening. And then I saw him. He emerged from between two graves, a man of average build, yet there was something unnerving in his movements. The shawl had fallen from his shoulders, revealing a gaunt face, pale and streaked with mud. His eyes flickered, darting toward every sound. "Stop," I commanded. "I am Malik Safdar Hayat. Do not move." He froze. For a moment, it seemed like he might disappear into the earth itself, but then slowly he raised his hands. Behind him, the village dogs barked in the distance, and the fog seemed to shiver with anticipation. I called my assistant, Constable Rafiq, who had followed me silently. Together, we surrounded him. The only two exits from this part of the graveyard blocked. "What are you doing here?" I demanded, my voice echoing over the damp earth. For a while, he said nothing. Then, his voice trembling, began to tell a story of obedience, superstition, and manipulation. He spoke of a man the villagers called Nisa Hai, a local figure who was believed to have spiritual powers, a self-proclaimed saint. The intruder, named Faizan, claimed Nisa Hai had instructed him to extract the girl's voice, to honor some ancient ritual, an act he believed would protect his own family from misfortune. Faizan, naive and desperate to follow what he thought was divine instruction, had done as he was told. But as the details unfolded, the truth became far darker. Nisa Hai had never been a saint. He had been using the fear of spirits to control the village, to satisfy his greed and twisted desires. Faizan had been nothing more than a pawn. "What about the girl?" I asked, my voice cold. "Was she hurt?" Faizan shook, tears mingling with the mud on his face. I'd never intended, only to scare." I felt the weight of the night pressing down. The graveyard, the fog, the trembling intruder. It all pointed to the terrifying reality that superstition, unchecked fear, and blind obedience could make ordinary men commit unthinkable acts. We escorted Faizan out of the graveyard and back to the village. The people, still frightened, had gathered at a distance. Nisa Hai had vanished, leaving behind only locked doors and empty rooms. It was clear he had fled, abandoning his lies and leaving chaos in his wake. Over the next few days, we searched the village and surrounding areas. Faizan revealed that Nisa Hai had hidden treasures, gold and cash, in his house. He admitted he had stolen them under the guise of the ritual. Using the clues Faizan provided, we tracked Nisa Hai to a distant village where he had taken shelter in a friend's home. When confronted, Nisa Hai tried to deny everything, but the evidence was irrefutable. The villagers' blind faith had been exploited. The missing girl's voice, the fear, the treasure, all of it orchestrated to manipulate and control. As Malik Safdar Hayat, I stood before the village once more, my voice carrying over the silent crowd. Fear can be the most dangerous weapon, especially when placed in the hands of the deceitful. Do not trust men claiming divinity. Do not surrender your judgment. God exists, yes, but not in the whispers of charlatans. Power lies in reason, in courage, and in the ability to see truth through darkness. The village exhaled, the fog lifting slightly. Faizan, remorseful and wiser, promised to atone for his role. Nisa Bhai was taken into custody, but the lesson lingered far longer than the man himself. The missing voice was found not just in the girl, but in the conscience of the village. A reminder that superstition could silence reason, and fear could mask the truth. And that night, as I left the village, the graveyard seemed quieter, but the shadows remained, waiting for the next story to be told.